All right, my friends. So today we're going through chapter 7, and this is step 4 of the step 4 in behavior objectives and target goals. That is our focus for today. Let's get started. So, in introduction, that's what we're doing. So we are going to delve into the essential tasks involved in social marketing and planning process. And so these tasks form the foundation of our social marketing campaign, and they're really just crucial for the success. So first thing that you need to know is selecting a specific behavior. And here you are looking at identifying which behavior you actually want to change or you want to or aim to influence. And so this is the behavior that should be chosen based on the relevance to your campaign's objective and the things that you're trying to address. So you identify the social issues, then you identify the specific behavior that you want to change. So in this case, you are looking at what you want to consider, which would be the behavior is well defined, it is measurable, is realistic. Every one of these things have to be accounted for as you are selecting the behavior you are trying to change. The second thing that we have is identifying objectives that should be answered, or that should be addressed. And so objectives are really, really important because they give you a quantifiable outcome. And that, again, if it's not measurable, it didn't exist. So in order for you to actually get the result that you want to get from your marketing efforts, it has to be quantifiable. And that's why the objectives are so important. You are looking at something that has to be SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay, and again, the aim is to make sure that they align with the campaign's overall arching goal. The third thing that we're looking at is setting target goals for behavioral change. And so here you want to define the goal and the change that in that behavioral change that you aim to achieve with a specific time frame as well. So these goals serve as a benchmark to measure the success and the impact of your campaign. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about behaviors and goals. And so here, really, we want to have the behavioral objective again and to focus on a specific behavior that you're trying to change. That's very, very important. Sorry, one second. I feel like I'm looking at the different things. Okay. Anyway, so back to objectives and goals. Objectives are the dependent variables that help decide the independent variables. So make sure that your objectives and your goals fall under that category. You have to identify again what is the dependent variable and what is the independent variable that influences that as well. And those should be your goals and objectives. And goals set the different levels of behavioral change that you're trying to enact. But we'll delve more into that in 10 minutes. Okay, so establishing the campaign objectives, as we mentioned earlier, is something that is very, very important. And there are different types of objectives that we're going to look at. First and foremost, we're looking at behavioral objectives. So these focus on the specific behaviors you aim to change with your target audience, and these again should be measurable. The second is a knowledge objective, and that is what knowledge are you trying to share or information that an awareness level that needs to be addressed for your audience to be impacted by it. So you can have the objective to be a behavioral change objective. You can have the objective be a knowledge-based objective, so trying to change how much knowledge they have of something. So enhancing the understanding and facilitating informed decision-making for the group. And finally, you can have the belief objective, which is aimed at changing someone's belief and the outcome of that, of taking on that particular trait or doing that particular action, okay? So this is a shift in attitude. That's the third one, a shift in attitude. So for example, in a campaign that promotes recycling, a belief could be that shift 30% of participants from having a neutral attitude towards recycling to having a positive attitude towards recycling. All right, so that would be your campaign objective, is to change a certain belief. And if the belief is neutral, we want to shift it over to it becoming more on the positive or negative side. Makes sense? How we feeling? Everyone doing okay? Wow, what a very interactive group. All right. Again, SMART goals. SMART goals are very imperative, specific, measurable, attainable or achievable, relevant, and time bound. So you can say that increase the average of number of minutes of physical activities per day among adults by 30% within the next 6 months. Okay, that is time bound by in the next 6 months, right? That is relevant to what we're doing. If our campaign is on physical health, that it gives us a specific group, and that is and it's measurable in that it has the 30%. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, so within that, you have to specify target rate of change. That's how you end up with the SMART goal. You have to specify the target rate of change. You have to establish desired change in knowledge, and you have to look at non-quantifiable overarching goals. Before you take those non-quantifiable overarching goals and put them into specific things that are actually quantifiable. Cool? So it's okay to say, to have like a general goal that's not really quantifiable, but when we break it down to pieces and we implement it to real life scenarios, then we have to have it quantifiable. So drafting behavioral objectives is the foundation of your campaign, and specifying the specific actions or behavior you aim to change with the target audience should be very clear. It should be, again, measurable, and it should be in line with your overall goal. And you should also look at the impact on evaluation that it would have. So a clear and measurable goal provides a basis for evaluation of success of your campaign. If you know from the start that this is how you're going to measure and how you're going to change things, or how you're going to evaluate things, then by the end of the experiment or by the end of your campaign, you also know that this is, these are the results I'm looking for. Does that make sense? Or these are the techniques I'm going to use to be able to collect the data that I'm going to collect. Yes? Yes? No? Maybe? How we doing? All right. So another way to talk about the effect on campaign evaluation, you're looking at providing clarity and direction for assessing your impact of your effort. You're providing measurability and effectiveness assessment, which would be the behavior objective and the target goals as a criteria for evaluating the effectiveness of your intervention campaigns. And through it, you can actually determine whether your campaign has achieved its purpose or not. Okay? You don't know if you raised 30%, or if there was a 30% increase in physical activity if you weren't measuring the percentage. Make sense? Yes? If you weren't tracking it from the beginning. All right. So here we have 5 criteria that really ensure that your objectives are not only clear and measurable, but also well aligned with your market or with your campaign's goal. So things that you want to consider are the impact. So your objectives should target behaviors that have meaningful impact on the desired social change. They should also address actions that when these actions are modified, they contribute significantly to the change that you're trying to enact. So that would be in terms of impact. So an example would be in a campaign that reduces plastic waste, targeting the behavior of reducing single-use plastic bag usage has a direct impact on reducing plastic pollution, which then aligns with the campaign's overarching goal, okay? So if your goal is to reduce pollution, then focusing on whether it is an information objective or knowledge objective where people get to know a little bit more, then that would be, knowledge of when to use or not to use a single-use plastic. Things like that would be something that you would have to look into. Willingness is your target audience's willingness to actually have that change. How likely are they to want to change? Because you can't change someone's behavior based on what you want. You can only change someone's behavior if they choose to change that behavior. Same thing what happens with relationships. This is if someone tells you, I'm going to change for you, well, resentment might set in afterwards. A month, 2 months, 3 months, you find that that person went back to their normal habits. Why? Because if they're not willing on the inside for themselves to change, maybe it was induced by you and they realize that it's good for them. But if it wasn't there, then most likely they will relapse. And so that willingness has to be there for people to have that behavioral change. Okay, so for example, if your campaign is to promote healthy eating, then like maybe or eating 1 serving of fruit on a daily basis, okay, replace it with something different, then the person who is actually participating has to be willing to replace a bar of chocolate with a serving of fruit, okay? So that would be willingness. Measurability, also, again, we talked about it earlier, but you have to be able to measure the change that has occurred and to what extent. So define clear metrics, data collection methods to track progress. Right? Next one is market opportunity. So you have to assess if the market has the opportunity for the desired behavioral change, as you would when you are creating a new product. Is there a willingness to buy this product or service from you, okay? So here again, in relationship to behavioral change, you have to assess, is there a market opportunity? Is there a substantial potential for change in the target audience? And so identifying opportunities can help you focus your effort where they are more likely to yield positive and good results, okay? And the last one of the 5 is market supply. Consider the availability and accessibility of resources and services that required for the behavioral change. So if you are telling people to eat healthy, but the only things around them are unhealthy food or unhealthy options, well, that's not really going to go very well. In a campaign that promotes, this is another example, in a campaign that promotes regular healthcare checkups, accessibility to healthcare facilities and services play a crucial role in being able to say or facilitating that behavioral change. If there aren't enough doctors or if There is no access to healthcare, or it's very expensive in a poor community, then people are not going to get those healthcare checks, right? It's not going to be a priority, and they won't be able to change their behavior, despite the fact that they may know that this is good for them. All right. So other things that you have to take in or factor in is racial and cultural factor. So there is a very high influence on race and culture and behavioral change. So different cultures, norms, cultural norms, beliefs, and values, they impact the accessibility of to a certain behavioral change. I think, was it you guys, was it this class that I was telling you guys about the dating project that we're working on? No, not this class. Yes, this class. Okay, so part of the things that I found out recently from one of the groups, or as we're continuing on with this research project, is that within a subcategory of people, there are people who don't don't go to church on a regular basis, but they want someone who is a Christian, but they don't go not because they don't want to, but because culturally within their tribe, because there are categories of people that are broken into tribes, within their tribe, that cultural norm doesn't exist. So the people flat out said, oh, we go on Christmas and Easter, baptisms, and funerals. And that's the blanket statement that you have there. And why? It's because racial and cultural factors that are within that subcategory of groups. Do you see what we're saying? So whatever the behavioral change objective is, this is what we have to consider when we are creating these dating initiatives. Yeah, cool. And that to us is a customer behavioral customer behavior kind of thing. All right. So weighing out the criteria is another one. So balancing these criteria is very crucial. So you may encounter situations where some criteria align perfectly, while others that may have challenges, which then involves decision making of weighing which one of these criteria is more important and what are we actually looking for in the context of our campaign. So, for example, in a campaign that promotes vaccination, understanding that cultural factors may influence vaccine hesitancy should lead to culturally tailored communication strategies, even if the market opportunity is high. So it's not about the fact that there is a high need for this, but how are people willing to respond to this, and what does it mean? How do we change our communication method as a result? Again, with the whole dating project that we were talking about that carried kind of over, as you can kind of see that. Now we're looking at how can we tailor the communication strategy while the objective is still the same, to be able to tailor to the people that don't necessarily attend these meetings so that they can be part of that community because they have the same problem. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So hopefully the live examples are helpful. All right. See. I have lost my notes. One second. There we are. All right, so as we're looking at the differences with the integration with other planning components, you can find, you can look at different logic models. So for example, within the logic models, you're looking at behavioral change, which is visually represented, represents the causal relationship between your campaign's input, activities, output, and outcome. And they help illustrate how specific behaviors lead to broader social change. And what the logic model does is that it demonstrates the logic behind your campaign. Why are you doing this? So showing how behavioral change at an individual level contributes to achieving your campaign's overarching outcomes. So behavioral activities are essential components of the causal change. Okay. All right. So let's talk about knowledge objectives and belief objectives. We're going to start off with knowledge objectives. And as we talked about earlier, knowledge objectives is this idea of extending knowledge to people. So the campaign here is not necessarily, or the goal of the campaign here is not necessarily to change the behavior by having them do something differently, but by giving them the knowledge that empowers them to do something differently. With that, that means you are shaping attitudes, that you are looking at influence on behavior and changing how that knowledge can change that, or how knowledge can impact the influence on someone's behavior as well. Okay. And examples of that may be showing people statistics or facts or laws that will hinder them from taking on a particular behavior because, well, now you know, right? Now you know that it's, you know, we were talking in the class before about a study that was done in Denver on needle sharing or drug sharing, right? Needles and drug users, and how the drug users thought it was the only problem was sharing needles, right? But when the observers went in and they found out and they did more research, they found out that the problem is actually not just sharing needles, that's not the only information that people needed, is that sharing things like cotton or spoons or water also needs to be limited, otherwise the diseases will spread that way too. Okay, so that was information that the drug users did not know and did not have, which is why the HIV rates as a result, or cases as a result of needle sharing or as a result of drug using continue to be high. But once they found out that this is what's causing them, they realized that what they needed is a knowledge objective, and what they implemented were campaigns to spread knowledge. And the knowledge that needed to be spread to that community is that if you continue sharing spoons, water, cotton, you will also end up with HIV activity. Okay, make sense? Do we see it? Beautiful. Now on to the beliefs. Beliefs, very similar, but the objective here is to change someone's opinions, values of opinions and values of the priority audience. And so you are creating campaigns that will help alter what they believe about your issue, about your behavioral change issue, okay? So maybe they believe that if I smoke, yes, in general, people get lung cancer, but that won't happen to me. And so that's the belief that has to change. So you'll run that campaign based on that. All right. So target goals are actually very important within your social marketing campaign, and they help planning and guiding the desired level of behavioral change. So essentially, they work as a behavioral change benchmark. And so here, the target goals provide a clear pictures of where you want your priority audience to be in terms of their behavior. What's the timeline? What does the map, what does the roadmap look like? And what's the ideal timeline to move through it? It's almost akin to me saying, You guys are going to graduate here with a degree in marketing. These are the classes that you need to take to get there. Yeah, that would be your roadmap that probably one of your counselors showed you at one point or another. Hopefully someone is showing you at one point or another. Okay. It also helps with measurable outcomes. When you have a target goal, when you have that benchmark, when you have that plan, then you can go back to it and measure things against it, okay? And as a researcher or as a marketer, it helps with informed decision making. So understanding the current level of your priority audience is really just essential for setting meaningful target goals, because what it does is it enables you to make informed decisions about the magnitude of change that is required. How big is that change? Okay. What is realistic and what's not? Essentially what the target goal does. Because part of the SMART goal is it has to be realistic. And it's only realistic if there is a target goal and if you're informed enough to be able to make those challenges or to make those decisions. Sorry. All right. So the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System is a national survey system in the United States that collects data on various health behaviors, chronic health conditions, and the use of preventative services. So it provides a valuable insight into behaviors, attitudes of the population, making it a valuable resource for setting target goals related to health behavior, okay? These are some of the things that you can use for you as you are creating these behavioral change campaigns. An example would be Healthy People 2030 is a set of science-based 10-year national objective for improving the health of all Americans. So Healthy People 2030 outlines specific goals and objectives related to various health and wellness topics. So I'll show you what I'm talking about so you guys can kind of see. Oh. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. Right, so this is one of the behavioral change target goals that you can see. This is the Healthy People 2030, their objectives that they had, can do objectives by topic, and each one of these has its own objectives in general, okay? And you can kind of see, so let's say, what are the objectives for women? Then you go down and figure out which one you're talking about. You know, I don't know. Reduce pregnancies in adolescents. This is one of them. Look, target met or exceeded already. Little or no detectable change with this one. And you can kind of follow these studies and see what they've been doing and how they've been implementing them. Because all of these that you see in the Healthy People 2030 are all basically behavioral change campaigns, okay? Or all social change campaigns. Does that make sense? So you can kind of see it in live how and what you are looking at. So as you go down, this is the key, right? The legend that's there, and you can kind of see within those studies, within this 2030, what are we doing and how are we going to achieve those goals? Cool. Oh. Some of these things are scary, guys. Look at this. Reducing mental health deaths is getting worse. Reducing severe maternal complication identifying during delivery hospitalization, getting worse. Preemie birth, getting worse. This is interesting. Anyways, look it up, see what social issues you find that are relevant to you, what you think are nice, and check them out and tell me what you guys think. Okay? Go back to All right, and other things you can also look at for resources would be peers and other agencies, so you can collaborate with other people and other nonprofit organizations that collect data as well. So pilot studies allow you to test your interventions or strategies on smaller scale before implementing them on a larger scale. And what does that is that it helps identify any potential problems or challenges that may arise during a full-scale campaign and hopefully help mitigate them. That way you're not struggling as much within that full large-scale campaign. And then we use it to identify an address problem, as we said, and as reference point for setting target goals. And some of the advantage is that it really just helps reduce the cost of this and increase credibility because you've done something that kind of uses what we're talking about. So that is the pilot, when you run a pilot test and a pilot targeted goal. So alternative goal setting approaches for behavior, we're going to start with campaign awareness. So campaign awareness goals focus on increasing the visibility and the recognition of your campaign among the target audience. And this is often used in statewide or national public health campaigns. So for example, when we're talking about a statewide tobacco prevention campaign or program, you might set goals to achieve a certain level of awareness among the general population that is smoking, okay? So that would be, your goal would be campaign awareness. The other goal would be a level of knowledge, okay? How much knowledge is involved in aiming to improve and understanding awareness of a specific information or fact. So an example of that, improved nutrition among low-income families is a good example of what we're talking about, because that you have to see what level of knowledge they actually know and how much knowledge can you add to that. Cool? How are we feeling? Understanding everything? No questions? You guys think this is cool? Not so much, maybe? I don't know. It's kind of exciting, you guys. Imagine being able to change someone's behavior because of your campaign. Making the world a better place because of your campaign. Kind of nice. All right. More of these alternatives for goal settings for behavior. You can look at I feel like I missed one. No, that's fine. There we are. Okay. So in more of these goals, we're looking at acceptance of beliefs. And so, bless you. This type focuses on influencing your target audience to adopt or accept a specific belief or attitude. So, for example, if your campaign aims to promote fuel conservation, a goal could be to influence customers not to top off their gas tanks. And so, by targeting beliefs and behavior, you can effectively promote change. All right. So here the target goal or you're not setting goals for behavioral change. You're setting goals for acceptance and shutting down for acceptance of beliefs. Okay. Response to a campaign component, and I'll wait for the screen to turn back on. But the next one we have is response to a campaign component. So sometimes your campaign, it includes multiple components. It's not turning back on. right, so sometimes your campaign includes multiple components or actions that contribute to the desired behavioral change. So in this case, setting goals related to response or engagement with these campaign components can be valuable. So you're breaking down your campaign into the components that you're working with. An example would be if your campaign promotes water conservation and there is a list of drought-resistant plants, a goal might be to have certain percentage of the target audience actively using or sharing that list, because that part of the component, that part of the campaign is relevant to actually getting the job done. So what this does is that campaign components like information, tools, or resources can play a crucial role in that behavioral change. So goals related to audience response indicates the effectiveness of these components in engaging and guiding your audience towards the desired behavior. And this would mean that allowing people to share a particular component of it increases something. You can think about it this way. Again, in regards to, let's say, the dating project that we're working on, that because it kind of hopefully gives you a grounded base to always go back to. When people, let's say you share a resource, and then that person then shares it with 2 or 3 of their friends, you're expanding that circle. So at certain points in the campaign, the objective would be, hey, share that resource or share this flyer for this event so that more people are coming to this event. Does that make sense? So this would be one particular component of that campaign that you are focusing on. Cool? All right. So if we want to put this in perspective, the acceptance of belief would be, there's a sense there within the studies, what we found is that there's a belief that it's always the same people that are coming to events, to dating events, or to try to find someone or whatever the case is. So changing that belief would be acceptance of belief, right? So changing, it would be the customer or the target audience accepting the belief that you have that it's not going to be the same people. And why it's not going to be the same people? Because we constantly have new people that are being added into the group. Does that make sense? Okay. So them accepting would be a target goal. So the target goal for that particular component of that campaign is to have them accept the belief that, oh, it's not like every other out there. Yeah? Makes sense? Okay, you guys can see how it's kind of like flowing with everything that we're talking about with in terms of behavioral change. All right, and then I skipped through these because they kind of all say the same thing. Actually, let's talk about these. This one's there. Okay. For this one, so the objectives and goals are drafts, and what they do is they help you gain a deeper understanding of your priority audience. And so when you have these goals and objectives, it kind of gives you, again, we said like this roadmap that you are dealing with. But with that, as you start to implement it, you start to understand deeper, in a deeper sense, who your target audience is and what are the needs that they have in order for us to really reframe that campaign without bias, without things like that, okay? And then finally, as you're going through your goals and objectives and you are refining them, you get to revisions and you get to finalization. of your objectives, okay? Okay. 1 second. All right. So here again, you collaborate with your teams to review the draft of the objectives and the goals to ensure that they align with the insight of your customers. So here you're looking at things like data analysis and feedback to refine your objectives and clarify the timeframes and deadline for achieving particular goals. So using objectives and goals as key evaluation metrics is actually really good, because if you start off with SMART goals, so specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound, it becomes easier for you to track the behavior. And so it serves a foundation for the campaign's evaluation plan, which you need to have from the get-go, okay? If they're SMART and measurable, then that you can understand exactly what you're looking for from the beginning. We're looking at a 30% increase. That is what we're looking for, so we can evaluate it better. Yeah? Okay. You're also looking at the items of measurement. So directly measure the desired behavioral change within your priority audience. You're looking at continuously monitoring. So continuously monitoring process throughout your campaign is actually something that ensures that you're on track to achieve your behavioral goal or behavioral change goals or objectives. All right. And the last thing that we're going to talk about here is ethical considerations when you are doing all this stuff. It's an integral part of the goal setting process. You have to collaborate with the community, engage in open and transparent discussions to evaluate potential ethical concerns and incorporate diverse perspectives. Okay. So make sure that there is no harm that is being done to the people, that there's equity and inclusivity, there's transparency and honesty, there's beneficence, which is goodness, right? Doing good, and non-maleficence, which is avoiding harm. And make sure that there's accountability as well. All right, so that is it for this particular chapter. We will be back hopefully in chapter 8 for the people who are watching online. Okay.